The gym at Eastside High was the kind of space that told you something about the person who maintained it before that person said a word. The floor was clean, not new. The wood had the specific warmth of something that had been used hard for many years and cared for consistently. The scuff marks of 1,000 practices absorbed into the grain rather than accumulated on top of it. The hoops were level. The lines were crisp. The bleachers were clear of the debris that accumulated in unmaintained spaces. The water bottles, the forgotten jackets, the general evidence of a space that nobody considered worth keeping. Aaron Briggs had been maintaining this gym for 15 years. Not because it was his job. His job was to coach basketball. He maintained it because he understood, in the specific way of a man who grew up in a neighborhood like this one, that the condition of the space communicated something to the players about what they were worth. And Aaron Briggs did not communicate to his players that they were worth anything less than everything he had. He stood at half court watching Darius Webb run the court vision drill. The drill was Aaron's design, 8 years of refinement, distilled into a sequence that taught a player to read a situation 2 seconds before it developed, and position himself for what was coming. It was not a complicated drill. Its value was entirely in the repetition, and in what the repetition produced over time in a player who had the specific kind of attention it required. Darius had that attention. He moved through the sequence, the cut, the read, the decision made before the defense had finished making its, with the specific, unhurried precision of a 17-year-old who understood something that most players twice his age had not yet learned, that the game was decided in the moments of stillness between the movements, not in the movements themselves. He finished the sequence, stopped, looked at Aaron. Aaron nodded. One nod. Darius turned back to the drill and ran it again, and Aaron watched and said nothing, because nothing needed to be said, and he had learned 15 years ago that the most powerful form of coaching was knowing when the work was speaking and getting out of its way. After practice, Aaron sat alone in the gym for a long time. The budget numbers were in his phone. He had looked at them so many times in the last 3 weeks that they had stopped being numbers and become a kind of weather, always present, always the same, the specific overcast quality of something that was not going to change regardless of how many times he checked it. The shortfall was larger than anything he had closed before. He had closed 3 previous shortfalls through community fundraising and grant applications he taught himself to write at night after practice. This one was different. This one had a finality to its size that the previous 3 had not. He did not have a plan. He turned off the gym lights. His apartment was too quiet for what he was carrying. He drove to the diner. Ray had his coffee on the counter before Aaron had his jacket off. 9 years of Tuesday and Thursday mornings had produced this specific efficiency. The mutual understanding of 2 men who did not need to perform the transaction of customer and owner, because the transaction had become something else over 9 years, and both of them knew it. "Eggs?" Ray said. "Please," Aaron said. He opened his phone. Budget numbers. Closed it, opened it. Read the same numbers he had memorized without trying to. Closed it again. 2 stools down. A woman in dark trousers and a gray sweater, both hands around a coffee cup, looking at a point slightly above the counter, with the specific stillness of someone whose mind was moving very fast, and whose body had learned to stay out of its way. The coffee in the cup had the particular flat surface of something that had gone cold. She had been here long enough for it to stop steaming, and had not touched it. Aaron noticed her the way he noticed young men on the street, and in the grocery store, and in the school hallways. Not intrusively, simply the habit of 15 years of reading body language for a living that had long since stopped being a professional tool and become simply how he saw. The untouched coffee, the stillness, the specific posture of someone carrying something they had decided to carry alone. Ray came with the coffee pot. Aaron nodded toward the woman's cup, full, cold, untouched. "How long has she been here?" Aaron said quietly. Ray glanced down the counter. 25 minutes. Aaron looked at the cup, at the cold coffee, at the posture of a woman who had ordered something and had not been able to bring herself to touch it for 25 minutes. He did not calculate. He did not think about it at length. He simply did what the situation seemed to require. The way he fixed the bleachers and kept the floor clean and showed up before his players. Because the situation required it, and he was the person present, and those two facts were sufficient. He signaled Ray. "Whatever she wants for breakfast, put it on mine." Ray looked at him. "You know her?" "No," Aaron said. "Just get her breakfast. If something in this moment is already sitting with you, if you recognize this man before you know his name, hit the like button right now. Subscribe if you have not already. We tell stories like this every single week. Stories about what happens when a person looks outside themselves and responds to what they see. Drop your country in the comments. Tell us where in the world you are watching from. We read every one. Now, Ray tells Eleanor her breakfast has been taken care of. Ray moved to the woman, spoke to her quietly. She looked up. The specific alertness of someone pulled from a very interior place by an external sound. Ray nodded toward Aaron. She looked 2 stools down. Aaron was looking at his phone, not performing the lack of attention, simply not making the breakfast into a transaction by waiting for acknowledgement of it. He had done what the situation required. The situation did not require anything back. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she picked up her coffee cup, drank. Aaron ate his eggs. The diner moved around them. Ray at the grill, a couple in a booth near the window. The specific morning energy of a place that had been open since 5 a.m. and had already fed half a neighborhood. "You didn't have to do that." Aaron looked up. She was looking at him directly. The specific directness of someone who had decided to be in a conversation and was committing to it fully. "I know," he said. "Why did you?" Aaron thought about the honest answer. It was not complicated. "You looked like you needed breakfast and weren't going to order it yourself." She looked at him with the specific quality of attention of someone who was used to reading people accurately and was reading him now and finding something she had not expected. "That's it?" "That's it," Aaron said. She extended her hand across the 2 empty stools. "Eleanor." "Aaron." They shook hands with the specific formality of 2 strangers at a diner counter who had decided, without discussing it, to be in a conversation. "What do you do, Aaron?" "Basketball coach," he said. "East Side High." "How long?" 15 years. She was quiet for a moment, the quality of quiet that was not absence but processing. "Tell me about it," she said. And something in the way she said it, not politely, not as the social gesture of someone filling a diner counter conversation, but with the specific interest of someone who actually wanted to know, made Aaron tell her. Not the budget crisis. He did not mention the budget crisis because he had not bought her breakfast to get anything, and mentioning it now would make the breakfast feel like something it was not. He told her about the program itself, what he had built, the court vision drill, and why he designed it. Darius arriving early every morning before anyone else and shooting free throws alone in the empty gym. Marcus making the read last Tuesday. the one Aaron had been waiting 3 months to see him make, and the single sentence Aaron said to the team when it happened, and what the team understood from that sentence. The 6 players who had gone to college on scholarships, not because the school had resources, because Aaron had standards, and the specific patience of a man who understood that standards were not a luxury available only to well-funded programs. They were the point. Eleanor listened the way she listened, completely, not waiting for her turn, not managing the conversation toward a point she wanted to make, simply receiving what he was saying with the full attention of someone who understood that the most important information was usually in what people said when they were not performing. When Aaron finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then, "What's the hardest part?" Aaron looked at his coffee. The honest answer was the budget crisis, but he did not want to say the budget crisis, so he gave her the other honest answer, the one underneath the budget crisis, the one that was true regardless of the money. "Convincing people that what happens in that gym matters," he said, "to people who will never see the inside of it." Eleanor looked at her cup. Something moved in her expression, not quickly, in the specific slow way that things moved in her when they arrived from somewhere real. "I know that problem," she said. "I've been working on it for 30 years. Aaron looked at her for the first time with genuine curiosity, not about who she was professionally, simply about who she was. "What do you do?" "Investment," she said. "Community development." Aaron nodded. They sat for another few minutes in the specific comfortable quiet of 2 people who had said something real to each other and did not need to fill what came after it. Eleanor set down her cup, stood, put on her coat, a simple dark coat, the coat of a woman who bought quality without needing to signal it. "Thank you for breakfast, Aaron," she said. "Any time," he said, and meant it in the specific way of a man who would do it again tomorrow without needing it to mean anything more than it meant today. She walked out. Aaron sat for a moment, looking at the door. Then he finished his eggs. Paid his bill, both portions, hers and his, without making a moment of it. Went to school. The formal notification arrived that afternoon. 3 paragraphs. The word "unfortunately" used twice. An acknowledgement of the program's contributions to the school community. An offer to transition Aaron to a physical education teaching role. The specific language of an institution doing something it knows is wrong, and trying to make it sound like something else. Aaron read it in his office. Read it again. Set it on his desk. He went to the gym. Darius was there. Early, as always. The free throws, the empty gym, the focused repetition of someone who understood that excellence was assembled in the minutes before anyone was watching. He saw Aaron's face when Aaron walked through the door and stopped shooting, held the ball at his side. Waited. Aaron sat in the bleachers. Darius came and sat beside him, not asking for an explanation, not filling the silence with anything, simply present in the way that Aaron had spent 2 years teaching him, and that Darius had turned out to understand better than Aaron expected. They sat for a while. "It's not good," Aaron said finally. "I know," Darius said. "The school moved fast with this kind of information. What do we do?" Aaron looked at the gym. At the floor he had walked for 15 years, at the hoops and the lines, at the specific condition of a space maintained carefully by a man who had understood that the condition of the space communicated something to the players about what they were worth. "I don't know yet," Aaron said. It was the first time in 15 years he had said that to a player. Darius looked at him for a moment with the court vision, the read and react that Aaron had spent 2 years developing in him. the specific ability to assess a situation honestly and position yourself for what was coming rather than for what you wanted to be coming. Then he stood, picked up the ball, went back to the free throw line, shot, made it. Aaron watched him shoot in the quiet gym for a long time. Right here, before you hear the phone ring tomorrow morning. Subscribe if you have not already. Because what happens next is the reason we tell stories like this one. Hit the bell. Drop your country in the comments. We are reading every single one. Now, 7:42 a.m. Aaron's phone rings. The call came at 7:42 the next morning. Principal Hayes. He answered with the specific, prepared calm of a man who had been expecting a version of this call and had spent the night deciding how he was going to receive it. Aaron. Her voice was different from what he had prepared for. I need you to come in. The board decision. Come in, she said. Please. He was in her office by 8:15. She slid a document across the desk without preamble. A letter on foundation letterhead he had never seen. The language formal and precise, and carrying in every careful sentence the weight of something that had been thought about seriously before it was written. A 3-year commitment. Full operational funding for the Eastside High basketball program. Equipment. A partial assistant coaching budget. The specific amount that covered the shortfall, and then something beyond the shortfall. Enough for the things Aaron had been writing grant applications for at night for 4 years. Anonymous donor. Complete anonymity requested. A law firm as intermediary. The only identifying phrase in the letter. In recognition of a program that has demonstrated consistent impact in its community and deserves to continue. Aaron read it twice. Who is this foundation? I don't know, Hayes said. The donation came through a law firm. The donor requested complete anonymity, and the firm isn't disclosing anything further. Aaron looked at the letter, at the number, at the 3-year commitment, at the phrase, consistent impact in its community, the specific language of someone who understood what the program was, and what it was for, and why it deserved to continue. He thought about the diner, about the untouched coffee, about a woman who asked what the hardest part was, and listened with the complete attention of someone who was actually receiving what he said. He did not know. He could not know. The anonymity was complete. Eleanor had told him only that she worked in investment and community development, and he had no evidence. And he was not the kind of man who arrived at conclusions without evidence. But he sat in Principal Hayes's office with the letter in his hands and felt something that was not certainty, something quieter and more permanent than certainty. The specific quality of a man who had spent 15 years believing that what happened in that gym mattered to people who would never see the inside of it, and had just received from somewhere outside himself the first confirmation that he had been right all along. He put the letter down. Tell the team at practice, he said. Hayes nodded. Aaron, I'll be in the gym, he said. 3 weeks later, Principal Hayes appeared at the gym door during practice. Beside her, a woman in a well-fitted dark jacket and trousers, who moved through the gym doorway with the specific authority of someone accustomed to the weight of a room shifting when they entered it, not performing the authority, simply carrying it the way she carried everything, as a fact rather than a statement. Aaron saw her face. He stopped practice. Eleanor Voss looked at the gym, at the floor, the hoops, the players, the specific condition of a space maintained by someone who understood what the condition communicated. She looked at it the way she looked at every investment she had ever made, with the complete focused attention of a woman who knew immediately when she was looking at something real. Then she looked at Aaron. He looked at her. The gym was completely quiet. 15 players at their positions, watching their coach stand at center court, looking at a woman they did not know, with an expression none of them had seen on his face before. "You," Aaron said. "Me," Eleanor said. He crossed the gym, stopped 6 feet from her. "Why?" She looked at him with the complete directness she brought to everything, the boardrooms and the diner counter, and this gym in equal measure. "Because you bought me breakfast," she said. "And you didn't need to. And you didn't want anything back." She paused, the specific pause of a woman who had been carrying something for 3 weeks, and was setting it down now in the place it was supposed to be set down. "I have spent 31 years investing in communities that conventional capital abandoned. I sat in that diner and realized I had never once experienced what it felt like to be invested in by someone who had no reason to invest in me. You gave me that." She looked at him. "I gave you the closest thing I had to give back." Aaron held her gaze. "You could have just said thank you." Eleanor almost smiled. The specific, almost smile of a woman who found something genuinely worth almost smiling at. "I'm an investor," she said. "When I find something worth believing in, I don't say thank you. I commit capital." Aaron looked at the gym, at Darius at the three-point line watching coach with the court vision, reading the situation 2 seconds ahead, assessing what he was seeing, filing it in the specific place where things that mattered were stored. At the 15 players from a neighborhood, the city's investment maps had been drawing lines around for 30 years, standing in a gym that was going to be there for them tomorrow, because a woman in a gray sweater at a diner counter had decided that what Aaron built deserved to continue. He looked back at Eleanor. "Would you like to watch practice?" he said. Eleanor looked at the gym, at the players, at the floor. "Yes," she said, "I would." She sat in the bleachers alone and watched. The same Eleanor who sat at a diner counter in a gray sweater with cold coffee and a difficult morning, sitting now in the bleachers of a public high school gym in an underfunded neighborhood, watching a basketball coach run his team with the focused authority of 15 years of built standards. No entourage, no phone out, simply present in the way that she had learned at a diner counter 3 weeks ago was the most powerful thing a person could offer another person. She watched the court vision drill, watched Darius move through it, and understood immediately why Aaron had described it the way he did. Understood not just the basketball, but the specific thing underneath the basketball. The life skill Aaron had been building in this young man under the cover of a drill. She watched Marcus make a read. Watched Aaron nod. One nod. The specific economy of a man who communicated through standards rather than words. She understood the nod. She had spent 30 years in rooms where the most important communications happened in exactly that register. After practice, Darius approached her, not because anyone asked him to, simply because he was the kind of young man his coach had spent 2 years building him into, the kind who moved toward things directly. "You're the one who saved the program," he said. Eleanor looked at him, at the court vision in his eyes, reading her, reading the situation, arriving at an assessment. "Your coach saved the program," she said. 15 years ago and every year since. I just made sure it could keep going." Darius looked at her for a moment. "Same thing," he said. Eleanor held his gaze. Then she nodded. Once. The same nod. The one that meant something that other people would use 10 words to say. Darius got his bag and left. Eleanor watched him go. Aaron found her still in the bleachers after the players had cleared out. He sat down nearby, not beside her, Nearby, the specific spatial courtesy of a man who understood that some people needed their edges respected. "The board," he said. 3 years. What happens after 3 years? Eleanor looked at the empty gym. What happens after 3 years depends on what you build in 3 years. She looked at him. "I have been investing in communities for 31 years. The investments that last are the ones where the community itself becomes the argument for continued investment. You have 15 years of that argument already built." She paused. "Build 3 more, then we'll talk." "We'll talk," Aaron said. "I bought breakfast this morning," Eleanor said. "Consider us even." Aaron looked at her for a moment. Then he laughed. A real one. From somewhere below the 3 weeks of relief and the 15 years of fighting, and the specific exhaustion of a man who had been carrying something very heavy for a very long time, and had just been allowed to set part of it down. Eleanor did not laugh. But something in her expression did what laughter did without making the sound. They shook hands in the corridor of Eastside High School. A basketball coach and a CEO, 2 people who had sat 2 stools apart at a diner counter and recognized something in each other that had nothing to do with titles or resources or what either of them did for a living. Simply 2 people who had looked at each other correctly and responded to what they saw. The next morning, Aaron was at the diner at 6:45. Ray poured his coffee without asking. Aaron picked up the cup, looked at it for a moment, both hands around it, the specific gesture of someone sitting with something they were about to drink. He recognized the gesture. He put it on the counter for a moment. Then he picked it up and drank. Ray nodded at the stool 2 down from Aaron. "Your friend coming back?" Aaron looked at the empty stool. Thought about Eleanor in the bleachers watching the court vision drill with the complete attention of someone who actually saw what she was looking at. Thought about Darius's nod and Eleanor's nod, and the specific economy of people who communicated in standards rather than words. "I don't know," he said. "Maybe." He looked at the door. Through the diner window, the street outside, the neighborhood, the specific morning light of a city, waking up in a place that the investment maps had been drawing lines around for 30 years. A place that had, in the last 3 weeks, been invested in. Quietly, without announcement, by a woman who understood that the most powerful investments were the ones made in what was already there. Aaron finished his coffee, went to school. The gym was there when he arrived. The floor, the hoops, the lines. The condition of a space maintained carefully by a man who understood that the condition of the space communicated something to the players about what they were worth. Darius was already there. Free throws. The empty gym. The focused repetition of excellence assembled in the minutes before anyone was watching. Aaron stood in the doorway for a moment, watching him shoot. Then he picked up a ball from the rack, walked onto the floor, joined him. The gym absorbed both of them the way it had always absorbed everyone who came to it correctly, completely, without ceremony, with the specific quiet of a space that understood its own purpose and was simply glad to be used for it. If Aaron's story stayed with you, if you felt something in that diner, in that gym, in the moment a man bought breakfast for a stranger and had no idea what it would become, share this video right now. Send it to someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who is doing extraordinary work in a place that the world has not yet looked at correctly. Subscribe if you have not already. We are here every single week with stories that stay with you long after they end. Hit the like button if this one delivered. And drop a comment below. Tell us where in the world you are watching from. Your country, your city. We read every single one, and we want to know exactly who is carrying these stories with us. Until next time, the most powerful investments are the ones made in what is already there. You just have to be willing to look.